The reality is nothing has changed in the way that most OBGYNs practice. Very few OBGYNs actually perform elective abortion. Polls have told us that maybe 7 to 14% will. So the majority of OBGYNs do care for a woman and her child. And our profession is unique. Sometimes we do have to balance the interest of one against the interest of the other, but we always do so in a caring and compassionate way. I believe that many doctors have not read the Texas law, which I feel is fairly straightforward and tells us clearly when intervention can be performed. But unfortunately, they're reading the newspapers and they've come to the conclusion, the erroneous conclusion, that there are situations that they cannot intervene in. Probably part of the confusion is that many of the mainstream medical organizations that doctors rely on for guidance have remained silent. I don't know why, whether it's ideologic or they don't feel that this is an area where they need to give guidance. I think that doctors do need guidance. They're frightened and in many cases do not know whether they will be charged with a felony for performing their standard medical care. The Texas law to me is very clear. None of the states have a law that will not allow a physician to intervene in a life-threatening situation. Generally, it's phrased that a doctor can use their reasonable medical judgment to decide when to intervene in the event of a life-threatening condition or in a condition that might pose a substantial permanent impairment to a major organ system, so renal failure, respiratory failure, which I would argue is in itself a life-threatening condition. Medicine is not exact enough to know whether renal failure might lead to death. So of course we want to intervene as soon as we recognize that a woman has a condition that may progress to something that threatens her life. A miscarriage is defined as the embryo or fetus has died in utero. So again, a law that protects unborn human life will not have anything to say about a human life that has died. So even though the procedures are similar, and I think this may be where part of the confusion comes from, any doctor can use those procedures to remove a deceased pregnancy from the uterus. He does not need to wait. The guidance that obstetricians receive through the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, ACOG, tells us that it is appropriate to offer intervention at the time of diagnosis. Occasionally, women who are not infected may choose to continue the pregnancy, and that is also a reasonable option as long as there's not overt infection. But to not offer delivery at diagnosis is not supported by the standard of care. And the intervention, if it does occur in this gray area before the baby can be saved, allows intervention to occur in one of two ways. The woman can be induced so that she has a vaginal delivery, or an abortion procedure called a dilation and evacuation, D&E, the layman's term is dismemberment abortion, can be performed. The Texas law does not offer guidance to the physician on which one. The physician, and of course in consultation with the woman, would make the decision on the appropriate route of delivery. But I think it's important to recognize that by and large, these are desired babies. This is a heartbreaking situation for women to be advised that their pregnancy cannot continue to give birth to a live child. In my experience, 25 years delivering over 5,000 babies, women almost always would like to have an induction so that they have a baby to hold, even if he cannot live. This allows them to mourn appropriately, have a baby to photograph for memories, to bury. It's a much more caring and compassionate way to deal with this heartbreaking situation than deliberately dismembering the baby through a D&E abortion. But again, the law allows the physician to make that decision, but the reality on the ground is that most obstetricians will offer induction because it's a more compassionate way to treat a human life. So we've seen abortion advocates point towards situations that are tragic and extremely rare in hopes of causing the American people and the people of Texas to turn against our legislation. The reality is polls tell us that most Texans support the laws that protect unborn life. And it's important to recognize that even in the tragic situations, these laws allow intervention. So there is nothing about the Texas law that is going to put women's lives at risk. They are only going to save the lives of unborn children. So it's important that we don't feel that we need to reverse course, that we really just need to make sure that the public become educated on what the laws actually say.